Hello.
Hello.
Hi, all. Welcome to Scary Talk, episode
81.
Thank you. Sorry, all the horror blends together in my head. Welcome to episode 81. This is Andre, and who's this?
Sorry, Sharon?
That was a combination between Sunny and Shannon. Hi, Sunny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm tired. I've had this, headachy thing going on, but I'm excited. And I've been binging YouTube videos about people who play violin, despite not playing violin. So that's been my mood.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's been really
I thought you were
fun.
going to say binging, like food. And I was like, same. But then you said violin, and I was like, oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, what have you been up to,
No.
Andre?
Well, definitely not that. As you know, I am the skinny king. So, but beyond that, well, today specifically, I had a pretty hectic day. I decided to do a number of things that I could have spread throughout a number of days, all of them just today, because I'm a crazy person. And I was like, sure, why not? I also woke up super pretty late, so I already didn't have a lot of day left. But I got my ballot in the mail last night, so I was like, I'm gonna vote today, and I did. And then I had to go leave that at the post office or like somewhere, mail it out. And so that was one of the things I did. I went ahead and did that, but when I got there, the office was closed. Google Maps hours were wrong, so fuck you, Google Maps. And so instead I had to just, but like that one post office didn't have a collection box outside, so I had to like drive to this like random part of town that just had like a collection box, a USPS collection box on like a lonely, dark sidewalk.
Oh, no.
And just like put my ballot in there, like while looking both ways, like. So I voted. I engaged in democracy. You're welcome, everyone. I did my duty. And then after that, I had to get a gift for a friend, not you, whose birthday is coming up soon. And so I did that. I also, before I left, I had to make sure I was, I wanted to pack because I'm going to be going on a trip soon. So, and I just kind of wanted to have that done before I ever left the house.
Totally.
So that took a little bit of time before I ever even left to go deliver my ballot, whatever. But then after that and the gift, I was like, you know what? I'm already out here. Why don't I go and get a flu shot? So I just did that. This was all in the span of like 4 hours. Like I was like here and there and back and forth. And so I did. Where I got it, it was like this drive-through clinic, which I actually really liked. Like it was so fast. You just like get in your car and they jab the thing in your arm and until you have a good day. And that's it. Now my arm is sore and I am protected. So, good day.
Wow. Wow, yeah. So many things. Oh my gosh.
And then tomorrow I'm going to do like nothing. I'm just going to sit on my ass for 16 hours straight and then go to bed. So, that's kind of how it works. I guess I kind of binge on productivity. That's one form of binging.
You know what? I really feel that. I definitely feel that. I'm like the person that will pull an all-nighter once a week and then sleep 12 hours every other night. That's definitely been my move. So
we work in bursts, and consistency is our enemy. So that's how work gets done with us. It's just
exactly.
Yeah.
We're just madly creative. You know, it all.
Yeah, like as a matter of fact, if you guys don't know, we actually record 4 of these episodes at a time because both Sunny and I we work on bursts of energy, and that's the only way we work.
No, exactly.
And so it's
exactly.
4 fucking times.
At the beginning of the month, we pretend that time has passed in between each of them, but it's just like one 5-hour session, really.
It's just like a month's worth of recording. We just sit there for 5 fucking hours talking to each other.
Can you imagine?
Trying not to cuss each other out because we hate each other at that point. Like
that's why by every 4th or 5th episode, you can hear the tension build.
Sunny will be like, Andre, can you stop interrupting me, you fuck? And I'll be like, Sunny, can you shut the fuck up? So anyway. No, that's not true. We record them fresh for you guys. By fresh, we mean they never come out on the day they're supposed to, but they are one at a time. At least that much is true. So look forward to listening to this episode in December. Now, okay, so getting I must say, getting my flu shot at this drive-through clinic did make me think of something that it made me think of the fact that there's so many things that COVID has changed, but kind of like, I think that in a way, COVID-19 has advanced society like 10 years. Like, it has forced us like 10 years, 10, 15 years into the future. Like, the fact that now everyone can work from home, everyone can study from home, as painful as I know that is, the fact that it is doable and we've proven that it is what I'm talking about. Also, the fact that you can get like any fucking kind of shot in a drive-through. I got the flu shot, but they were offering like a bunch of different shots that you could get. I'm like, why would we ever go back once COVID's over to like, no, you have to like work 8 to 5 in this physical place, even if like you don't really have to, and you know what I mean? Like, no, vaccinations have to be like super burdensome, and you have to like get in a line and wait in the fucking lobby. Like, it's a whole ass mess, and like, I hope that for those students who do like it, online classes of all subjects become like widely available once COVID's over, instead of institutions, like retracting that concept, because I think for those who like it, it's pretty cool. I know most people hate it, but I actually really liked online classes. I took a bunch when I was in community college, and it worked for me. So totally. I think the world has been forced to like advance kind of in a weird way. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I definitely do. It's tough though. I mean, yeah, I am curious to see what it'll look like in the future and how much we'll keep some of these changes or not. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for example, like, I say this because I think something like work from home would have taken like a couple of decades to become really normalized, whereas now it's the norm, and I hope it continues to be once the pandemic is over. And so that's what I mean when I say kind of totally. Fast advancement.
I do agree. I think that there needs to be more options for people, especially like half and half. And I imagine that would be much more like, I don't know, like economic on space. You can have a smaller office if half the people come in like half the time and then work from home the other half of the time. I don't know though. I'm just curious though, because I know that so many people, especially from the older generations, although with what I'm doing, because I'm teaching an undisclosed, I mean, I've probably talked about it before, but because I'm teaching, I know that like it's really hard on a lot of the students. So yeah, but especially that's because they're younger. Anyways, I just don't know. I could see it going back to being really similar, or I could see us like keeping some of these changes. I'm really curious.
Well, I hope we at least keep some.
Totally,
I mean, I guess I don't expect to keep all, and certainly a lot of people don't even want to keep all, i.e. students who hate online classes, but I hope that we do keep some.
Yeah, and I hope that a lot of these things are still options,
Yeah. Also, okay, this is like not really political talk episode 4, but I still want to talk about this more because it's funny rather than because it's political. So like I said, I voted today, and one of the props on there was Prop 22, if I'm not mistaken, which is the one about like Uber and Lyft like having to provide, like having the people that work from them now be classified as employees rather than independent contractors, and that means that they would have to like now provide them with like health insurance and other benefits that employees of a company usually get.
Totally.
And okay, so 2 days ago I had to get an Uber somewhere, and bitch, I opened the app and it's like, vote no on Prop 22, please. I also open Lyft, right? Because I always try to get the cheapest ride, so I check both apps. Immediately, vote no on Prop 22, please. Protect drivers. We care about drivers and them being flexible. And I'm like, anytime a company is like, we care about people, I'm like, it's probably a lie, and you mean you. You mean you care about you.
No, exactly. I actually listened to a really interesting thing on this recently. I think it was a podcast about like the history of the 40-hour work week and how people essentially had to fight to get it down to 40 hours. Like, it used to be that companies could work any amount without paying you overtime, right? And the company's argument was the same argument that they're using now. Like, if people want to work more, let them work more. Like, that's what the American dream is all about. But at the same time, obviously using that in an exploitative way. So, not that I have a view on this,
and not at all.
But
also, just to clarify, the app said vote yes on Prop 22. I got it wrong, because a yes means approving that supporting that these companies will be exempt from having to classify their workers as employees. So voting no means no, you guys are not exempt. You have to make them employees. So yeah.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, because I'm sure someone will listen to this before they get their fucking ballot, and we might influence them somehow. So if that happens, I don't want to make sure I said it right. Not that you should take advice from us on anything, really.
Honestly,
you should do your own research.
Yeah, you should.
But also, we sometimes take politics out of our ass and elbows, and we really don't hold back. So really, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Listen to us or not.
Yeah.
But I think you can gauge what way Sunny and I are voting. So there's that. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. This has been Communist Talk, episode 81. No. Now, on to the actual episode. Sunny, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Unsolved Mysteries.
That was the weakest drum roll in the history of
I didn't want it to be like an assault to the ears, so I made it gentle. It was but a pat.
Yeah. Unsolved Mysteries, that's right. I'm really excited for this one. I had a lot of fun researching for this episode.
Me too!
And
I feel like we should do a couple more of these, because there's a lot more than I thought, and they're all very fun.
Shocker, there are a lot of unsolved mysteries. I know. Oh my god. Okay. So I was actually, as you said that, I'm actually checking kind of our episode list, and I realized that I kind of already wrote in there Unsolved Mysteries Part 2. We should do one, and so we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
Perfect.
But yes, I totally agree. Now, what do you have?
All right. I'm going to start us off with what's called the Voynich manuscript. Really, I feel like Voynich is a lame name for it. It should be called, the Mystery Manuscript. Or, it should have a cooler name. Because Voynich, as it turns out, is only the name of its seller. So this guy, Wilfred M. Voynich, he's Polish-American, came into possession of what's now known as the Voynich manuscript. It is a detailed 240-page book, and here's the real kicker, it's written in some kind of language or something that no one has been able to decipher or connect to another real language that is currently known. It has pages and pages. Yeah. It's all handwritten, and it has beautiful detailed drawings, mainly of flora and fauna, right? Plants, things like that. Some of which also cannot be connected to any known plants, at least based on the drawings. So it's a big mystery, and through carbon dating, we've found that this document was originally written sometime between 1404 and 1438, so 600 years ago. I don't want to point out, we'll get into theories behind it, but I'm just saying, plants we don't know, languages we don't know, maybe a planet or a species we don't. Anyways,
I love this. I think I had heard about this before, just in passing. I love it. The fact that it's a whole ass book, and it's just about things that we don't understand. Oh my god! What are the chances that could be trolling, right? Because that's so much work.
Exactly.
And so it makes you think fuck, it must be real, and not just it's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what actually a lot of what I've read has pointed out is just that based on the dating of it, based on the amount of time and money that it would require to make these really detailed, colorful illustrations and write all this stuff. Is someone just gonna write gibberish for 240 pages? But yeah, it's extremely cool and mysterious. And one idea someone has put out, to be on the skeptical side, is that it could have just been a reference book of remedies and medicinal herbs and whatnot, written for the more well-to-do women in society. This is what one historian, it looks like, has what's the word? Posited. There it is. Yeah. So that is the Voynich manuscript, which is extremely cool. And shout out to Voynich. How on earth did he come into possession of that is the other question.
So have people tried to translate this and just failed? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Many professional and amateur cryptographers, so people whose job it is to decipher things, including code breakers from World War I and World War II, throwback to imitation games, have attempted to decode it, and no one has been able to.
You know what? I'm looking at pictures of this book. It reminds me so much of the Spiderwick Chronicles. I don't know if you've read or seen the movie or read the book. There's this, if you haven't, it's like this story about some kid who finds like a book that's basically like horticulture and also talks about some fauna like that no one has seen. And it's like his grandpa wrote it or something, but his grandpa's dead, and so he takes the book, goes on a magical adventure.
Wait, that's such a throwback. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but I definitely at least like saw parts of the movie or something.
Yeah, like it totally reminds me of the book that they show in the movie that has all this weird flora and fauna. Like that is
totally.
I mean, I wonder if they took inspiration from the whatever. What's the name of the guy? Voynich?
Yeah, Voynich.
What if this guy's name was like Earl? The Earl manuscript or whatever. Has a nice ring to it. Yeah, they probably took inspiration from that, but like, what did the original book take inspiration from if it is fake, right?
Totally.
I wouldn't know.
I mean, the thing is, it's like a pretty book. Like, it's pretty much just like someone writing out their thoughts with like pictures. You know, so that's like a pretty, I guess it's a standard format, but I now see what you mean in that. Oh, sorry, I have to sneeze. Never mind. Okay.
I'm leaving that in. Yes.
So, yes, I see what you mean. A lot of books now, like my nieces will have books that are like The Secret History of Dragons, and it's written in this same style, you know, where like the pages are kind of withered, and then it has all this script and like cool hand-drawn photos of like dragons supposedly, or like fairies or whatever the one is about. You know what I mean? Also, just a random fun fact about this. It is now kept in Yale University's Beinecke, that's just the name of the library, their rare book and manuscript library. So, even Yale is interested in this.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, if you can get me a copy, I'd love that. No. Oh my god, like Nick Cage style in National Treasure. I'm gonna steal the Voynich manuscript. Okay. I have something spooky for you.
Okay,
that was really interesting, but it was very like mystical. I mean, I love it, but I have something spooky. Get ready for this, okay? Chills. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the Salish Sea human foot discoveries. Have you heard of this?
I think you mentioned it, but I have not. I don't know what it is. No.
Okay, so since August of 2007, there have been at least 20 detached human feet found on the coast of the Salish Sea in British Columbia. So the Pacific West Coast.
Why is it listed as 20 feet instead of 10 pairs? Are these just random feet?
Because it's not pairs. It's not. It's 20 random feet.
I hate that so much. Okay, so 20 feet found.
Yeah. So they've been found in British Columbia, in Canada, and in Washington.
Whoa, wait, Washington, like in the U.S.?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the coast. Like they're washing up on this on the Pacific Northern coast.
Oh my god, we're in the video. How is cool?
Okay, shut the fuck up. Okay, so the first discovery was on August 20th of 2007. On Jedediah Island in British Columbia, and since then, feet have been discovered on the coast of different islands in British Columbia and in the U.S. cities of Tacoma and Seattle. So this is happening, girl.
Wait, how far are they from one another? I'm sorry, I don't really know where the islands of British Columbia are.
I mean, I'm sure there's a considerable amount of distance between Tacoma and Jedediah Island in Canada, but it's all, I mean, like in a map, it really doesn't look like that much, and it's all basically you could classify all of that basically as northern Pacific like west beaches. Like like it's
Yeah.
it's we it's not that large a space that like 20 feet appearing wouldn't be weird. Like it is weird, even if it's a large coast. So that's what I'm saying.
No, completely. I'm saying it's even weirder if they're far from each other, because then, like, what if people are doing, what, like, is there something happening independently? What's going on? But yeah.
Okay, so what I have is this. So apparently, these foot discoveries are actually not the first ones in British Columbia's coast. One was found in Vancouver in 1887, and this is where our story starts. One stormy night in 1887. No, and it led to the place of discovery being called Leg and Boot Square. So, in case you didn't get that. In 1887, on a beach in Vancouver, a foot was found, and police were like, "We're gonna call this place Leg and Boot Square."
You're kidding.
And they did.
Wow.
No, I'm not.
They said, this is iconic, this foot right here. Time to name the place after it.
Okay, so that happens, and then on July 30th of 1914, the Vancouver Sun reports that recent arrivals from Kimsquid reported a human leg encased in a high boot. By the way, Kimsquid is this like village in British Columbia. Reported a human leg encased in a high boot was found on a beach near the mouth of the Salmon River, which is like a nearby river, and it was thought that the remains were from a man who had drowned on the river the previous summer. So that's 2 feet already, and this is 1914. Now, feet kind of just stop appearing there, and then in 2007, like a lot started appearing very close together, and this is kind of where the story really picks up. So in August 20th, 2007, like I said, in Jedediah Island, there's a foot found. A girl visiting from Washington picked up a size 12 Adidas shoe and opened the sock to find a man's right foot.
Oh my god.
Man, that's a trip that girl will never forget. Like,
can you imagine her
damn.
like posting a photo of the foot to Instagram? Like an unforgettable trip.
I mean, I was more thinking she was going to be terrified and run away, but I guess there's 2 ways you could take that, right?
No.
Now, then in August 26th of 2007, so only 6 days later, in this place called Gabriola Island, which I had previously misread as Granola Island, a man's right foot discovered by a couple, also disarticulated due to decay, is found and reported, and people are like, what the fuck? So that's another foot. Then you jump to February of 2008. So on the 8th of February of 2008, a right foot in a size 11 Nike appears. And the remains are actually able to be identified as a 21-year-old man reported missing 4 years prior, whose death is considered, quote-unquote, according to authorities, not suspicious, indicating either misadventure or suicide. Now, this is going to be a trend with these stories. I didn't mention that the first shoe, the first man... Sorry, the first foot that I mentioned, the one in August 20th, 2007, was actually also identified, and it was linked to a man, a missing man who had been suffering from depression shortly before going missing. So people also attribute suicide as a cause of death for that, which, like, okay, and I guess that kind of appeases the public, because at the time people were like, there's a serial killer out there and he's cutting people's feet off and throwing them in the ocean. So, which, I mean, I don't discard that theory. And here's why. There's so many fucking feet. This is why, right? This is why. Because you can look at the Wikipedia page for this, and there are 21 feet, like I said at the beginning. There's 21 feet that have just appeared on the shores of British Columbia from 2007 and 2000 to 2019. 12 years is too short a time for 21 feet to just fucking appear, okay? And the most recent one was not that long ago. It was in January 1st of 2019. There was a foot found in a boot, later tied via DNA to someone who had been missing. Which, again, okay, maybe they went missing and then they killed themselves, suicide. Okay, but it's just weird. Like, why is it only their feet? Like, I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of proposed explanations for why not the whole bodies of these people, but just their feet are popping up. And one of them is that the shoes that these specific people wear, encase the foot really nicely and kind of prevent deterioration and decay. And also the fact that these kinds of shoes, some of the kind of shoes that these feet have been found have been found inside of have like air pockets inside of them, allows the feet to float to shore. But here's one like hole in that theory: not all of the shoes found are shoes like that. Number one, shoes that would prevent decay, and also that would allow feet to freely and easily float to shore.
Totally.
Especially not the boots from like 1914. Like,
No,
just
totally,
pointing that
totally.
out.
Well, in terms of like shoes that prevent decay and like float up, that's why I always wear my Nike Airs. And today's episode, everyone, is sponsored by Nike.
Sponsored by Nike.
Just do it. Just do it, talk.
Oh my god, just do it. Fuck, Sonny. You're fired.
Just kidding. I wish Nike sponsor us.
Dude. When your foot found in the British Columbia shore after you off yourself, Nike, just do it. Anyway.
They're definitely not going to sponsor us now, Andre. God.
Yeah, we're not. Authorities mainly attribute suicide to these happenings. However, even if some of them could be explained by this, not all of them can, mainly because not all of the feet have been linked via DNA to people. And also, number two, even if you could link all of them to missing people and assume that all of them just committed suicide, not all of the shoes found contain the attributes of a shoe that, again, would prevent decay from the detached foot, and also would allow this foot to float to the shore easily. So this is weird. The Wikipedia article on this mentions that decomposition can really easily separate the foot from the body because the ankle is relatively weak, and so that could explain why you are only finding feet inside shoes floating up to these shores. Also because like the buoyancy caused by the air inside or trap within a shoe would allow it to float away, like I mentioned. Which, okay, however, finding feet, like I made my own note about this, like finding feet and not the rest of the bodies is still pretty unusual, because like finding 2 feet has been, like, by an article that I read, had been given like 1,000,000 to 1 odds of being a thing that happens. When I read an article on this issue, and it's like you could then easily describe that as an anomaly, couldn't you? Because like those are pretty slim odds.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so it's still like, okay. What I'm saying is, like, how a foot could detach from a body is, I guess, pretty easily explainable. When it happens because the ankle's pretty weak. Okay, I can understand that. But why are all these feet floating to shore, right? I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure, jump off of bridges with shoes on, and you don't see millions of fucking shoes ending up on beaches, right? Like, it's only this specific spot.
Yeah. Because, I mean...
What the fuck?
Yeah. That's very true. It is also very interesting that all the feet have shoes on them. I just thought that from the beginning. Well, because,
right.
You'd expect if it were some kind of killing or something, I would assume you would take the shoes off and dispose of them separately.
Right. So I read something really interesting, which was that authorities didn't think that this was a serial killer, because serial killers, when they caught human parts off their victims, they do it to keep the part kind of as a memento, or in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, to like eat it later. And they wouldn't go through the work of cutting off a human foot, which I guess is a bit of work, to, I don't know, I saw so to then just dispose of it. That's why authorities didn't think that this was the work of a serial killer. And then when they were able to link some of the feet to like missing people that were deemed to like have been dealing with mental health issues before disappearing, people were like, oh, they just killed themselves. Which, I mean, yeah, I guess, but again, like, why this specific why this specific shore, and why only 21? Like, 21 is a lot, but it's also very few for the number of people that kill themselves in bodies of water with shoes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that is like a weird amount. Totally.
like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
It's like so many. It's like so many to show up in one place, but also so few. If you're telling me that the reason they show up is because people kill themselves in bodies of water, well then wouldn't like hundreds of them show up in all kinds of shores? Because like, I'm sure people do that a lot. So
yeah, I feel like we're gonna discuss. I'm sure people do that a lot.
hey, what? I mean, it's probably true.
Oh yeah, no.
Like people jump off bridges all the time.
No, it's true. I think that they're gonna find a killer and they're gonna call him like message in a bottle killer because he would just cut off these feet and let them free in the ocean. That's my theory.
Wow, poetic. So anyway, you know, the first like couple feet appeared. People are like, well, this is weird in 2007, and then the finding of the third foot made it the first time that like 3 such discoveries have been made so close to each other, and this is when people really started freaking out. And then the 4th discovery comes in like early 2009, and this causes speculation about human interference, and people become really curious about this, and that's kind of when the public really started to freak out and be like, is there a serial killer cutting people's feet off? At this point, authorities obviously say no. I say I don't know, but it is pretty weird.
Yeah,
I mean,
and if it is suicide, why hasn't it happened before? Because suicides have been happening for a long time. So, like, why now?
Right. Like, I'm sure that... I don't know. I'm sure you could come up with some explanation about, like, oh... like, it only happens here because of the currents, or... But, like, that's so... I just don't believe that. I just don't believe, like, this one, like, relatively small, like, amount of shore in British Columbia and Washington is so special because of its currents that this is the only place where feet are going to show up, right? So... I mean, there was, at the time, speculation that the feet belonged to people who died in the Asian tsunami in 2004. So that was one theory that happened in 2004, and then they started showing up 2007
Dang, how nasty
onwards.
were these feet? Were these, like, 3-year-old feet? God.
But the thing is that besides the manufacturing dates of the shoes, people were like, no, it can't be. And also just like the way that ocean currents work, which I just mentioned, like there was a lot of talk about ocean currents. People ended up kind of discarding this theory because they were like, no, that like I don't think the currents are traveling. There's no way the currents from there would travel to here and throw up these feet here in the British Columbia shore. That's not how that would work. So people discarded that, but that was a theory like early on in 2007 before they could identify who any of the feet belonged to. So, I mean, I don't really have a conclusion for this one. I guess that's what this episode is, isn't it? Unsolved mysteries. Wow, Andre,
you don't
genius.
have a conclusion to your unsolved mystery?
Listen, I guess I'm gonna say suicide, but the crazy in me wants to not stop it there, and I'm gonna also say, I guess, like, yeah, suicide seems like, okay, like the thing that makes sense because it's people who went missing, and before they went missing, they had mental health issues, okay? Or maybe it's a serial killer who targeted people with mental health issues, made it seem like they had disappeared, so when they disappeared, people wouldn't question why they disappeared.
That's deep.
Oh, you know, Ricky, my uncle, he just killed himself. Oh, he was depressed. And then he kills them, cuts up their feet, eats the rest of the body, throws the feet in the ocean.
Maybe the feet are just the least desirable delicacy on the body. And that's what we're really discovering right now.
Don't tell that to the people with foot fetishes, but yeah.
No, well, you know, they're hot to see, I guess, but maybe not to eat. Consider that, foot fetishists.
Yeah, good point. I'm gonna tell my my cousin Hannibal about that. So
you know,
that is.
No, sorry, you finish.
No, that's a joke. I mean, what else can I say?
I was just gonna go on a weird... I just think it's sad that foot fetishists get so much, like, flack, I guess, commonly, when it actually seems like a pretty common, like, of the fetishes you could have, I feel like it's on the mellower side, honestly.
I don't think it's as common as other fetishes, but it's interesting. I was gonna say, for example, like eating ass. It's not as common as that, but actually, I don't think people consider that a fetish anymore, whereas maybe in the past they did.
Exactly.
And I guess that's really what it is, isn't it? Like maybe like in 10 years, like a foot fetish wouldn't even be considered a fetish. And I guess that's kind of the goal. What I'm trying to say is, people with foot fetishes, if people give you shit for that, don't sweat it. Like,
Honestly, yeah.
it's gonna like
You're
the
not
definition is
looking
gonna
to
change.
take a fat poopy on your partner, you know? Like, there's way worse out there.
I mean, even then, in 100 years, you don't know. But the
No,
point is that like
truly.
fetishes are gonna be phased into just kind of normalcy with time. And so, if you're someone who has a fetish and you think you're weird because of that, just understand that the word fetish is gonna stop being associated with what you like, probably like in the near future,
Yeah.
unless it's something
It depends.
really, really
Yeah,
bizarre.
it depends on what if you're a furry, I'm not making any guarantees.
Sorry, it's not happening. But foot fetishes, I feel like,
Yeah.
girl, Madonna sucked like this guy's toe
Of
in one of her
course.
music videos last year. So
Dang, last
I mean,
year, she's freaking on it. Look at her. She's got her finger on the pulse of society.
I know.
This many years
Yeah.
later.
And a finger in the mouth. Listen, she sucked Maluma's toe at 60. Who else can say they did that? No one. Okay. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. What the fuck are we talking
And
about?
welcome to Foot Fetish Talk.
Yeah. Okay. Also, I don't know if you've ever been to a Spencer's, but I have because I'm trash, and
Of course.
if you visit like the back part of it, right, and like there's always the sex toys, whatever. Okay, so last time I went to one, I always go there not because I'm a freak, which I am, but because I find it so funny just to see what they sell, and so I've been to Spencer's a number of times, but the last time I went to one, Sunny. They were selling a foot that you could fuck.
No. No. What?
This
So
is
this like
okay.
is this like a fleshlight that looks like a foot?
That is precisely what it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So foot fetishists rejoice. There's that. I'm sure I'm late to the party though. I'm sure you guys already knew about that. So moving on. What do you got, Sunny?
Okay. So I've got a smaller one, and in case I didn't clarify with the Voynich manuscript, there is some speculation about like could that be an alien manuscript, you know, because it's not understandable. I feel like it's a little too, I don't know, it's like
Human looking?
Yeah, there's just like I feel like it'd be even weirder to be honest. But I feel like it's just
It looks more like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it than an alien wrote it.
Exactly. But speaking of aliens, my next thing is called the wow signal.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is really, really cool. I was not expecting to come across this when I was looking up like unsolved mysteries. But essentially this guy, Jerry Eamon, this is in 1977. He's working at, I think it's Ohio University, and he volunteers at this local, basically radio signal. They're basically trying to do like a ham radio thing with aliens. And what they do is they like take in radio signals, and then they take all the outputs from the signals and they give it to this guy, and he's supposed to look through and see, is there anything weird that you wouldn't expect from a radio signal, based on the computer printout that he has. So you can see like the kind of screenshot, which I have here, but it's a bunch of numbers, and then there's this one section that has some letters in it, and it says 6EQUJ5. And before that, it only had numbers 1 through 4 in it. And so he circles that little like six character thing, and he writes on to the left of it, "Wow!" exclamation mark, and that's why it's called the wow signal. Yes, so he was volunteering. This is what it's called, SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and it's actually really cool seeing how they go about this. Essentially, this is the thought process that goes into the radio signals that they look at. They guessed that aliens would choose a frequency that means something to creatures who know math and chemistry, which is like funny, right? When you think about it, this is all sciencey stuff, so you're like, if we are contacting aliens, we're probably contacting the nerdy ones. And so hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, and if you zap a hydrogen atom, it resonates at the rate of 1420 megahertz. So they were like, hey, we're going to check out the signal 1420 megahertz and see if anyone sends it on that, because that is a significant number. And look for something loud that would catch our attention. So, on August 15th, 1977, this dude Jerry is checking out the radio signal, and on very, very close to where they predicted at 1420. On 1420.4556 megahertz, there's this weird sound that lasted about 2 minutes. Really, really loud, just like they predicted it would be. And the letters and numbers are essentially, they measure how intense the electromagnetic signal, which is just the radio signal, is when it hits the receiver. Wow, being in the ham radio club from high school, really kicking in right now.
Tell me about it.
So basically from 0 to 9, it indicates the power of the signal. And when it gets past 9, you start to use letters. So when it's at 10 strength, you get A. So essentially you have a scale that goes 0 to 9, and then above that it goes A to Z. So what you have in this sequence here is 6 E, Q, U, J, 5, all of which are way louder than you'd expect. And E, Q, U, and J are all, of course, much, much louder because they're letters. Getting towards like the last letters of the alphabet. So Jerry, who's decoding this, says like he's never seen any signal that strong. He was not expecting that, and he called it, that's a hello level, and that's why his reaction was like the wow, like he was amazed. The other side of this is that although you can't, it's one of those, it's just like living in a simulation. You can't prove, I mean, it's just like anything we talk about, pretty much. You can't prove that it was aliens, especially because it wasn't repeated. There's just this one signal this one time, and their main looking at it critically, they were like, well, why wouldn't they do it multiple times? Because that's essential to the scientific theory for us to verify that this is a weird signal that was intended for us to hear it, is if it came in multiple times. But it only happened one time, and when they basically, predicted where the signal came from, they looked back and found that it was at this whole other part of the universe, of course. I think they said it was like 25 light years away, but they didn't find a planet or anything there. The place that they tracked it back to was empty. So the question is, was there something there before that sent the signal and then disappeared? Was it maybe a passing comet? That's a more recent theory. Why only one signal if it was an intelligence that was trying to send us some kind of message? And as we've mentioned before, there's no definitive answer. But it is super duper fascinating. So
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about the comets. No, I mean, listen, I am skeptical I'm definitely not skeptical of aliens at all, but I am skeptical of how they would communicate with us, and I'm skeptical that the way they would do so would be through like these, like if there's a message within the signal, within these undecipherable like radio signals, right? Because like if they're so advanced that they're able to send a radio signal this far, then why would they do it that way? I mean, there's a possibility that maybe they're not so advanced and the radio signal, it's not like they intended to send it to us to send it this far necessarily, but rather that, a radio signal just kind of travels endlessly and it happened to reach us at one point.
Exactly.
Maybe, years and years after they sent it by accident. But I really don't know because I'm stupid. I don't actually know how radio signals work. I don't know if like they dissipate over time.
No, that's the cool thing with radio signals is that they can just go such a long way, which is why.
Okay.
Which is why SETI was like, let's check out the radio waves, I guess.
Interesting. Okay, so if that's the case, then if they're really intelligent and this is how they communicate it, I'm really skeptical of that. But if they're not necessarily that intelligent and they just happen to put out a radio signal, seeing if anyone would kind of respond to it, then I think that's a little bit more believable. Like imagine a civilization that is at the same height as ours in a distant planet, just sending out a radio signal, and then hoping someone will catch it. I mean, we have done that plenty of times.
Totally.
But obviously the thing there is that, we've done that, but we have tried to include like very specific messaging. I don't know. I watched this thing about Carl Sagan the other day, and not only have we done that with radio signals, but like even when we sent out on this we sent out this like space probe like some decades ago, and another one more recently. But the one that we sent out first, I think this was like in the 70s or in the 80s, had like a disc within it that like if any distant civilization were to find this thing, it contained a lot of basic information about who we are as a species.
Oh yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah.
Right. So, and with radio signals, you can't be that. I'm not sure how much information you could really condense into a number of radio signals, but the point is that even then, we still try to convey some kind of information, and the wow signal is just a noise. Now, there's a possibility that this noise is actually some other civilization's language, and we just have absolutely no hope of ever deciphering that because we're just so different. But I don't think so.
Well, that's the thing. I think that sending out the radio signal isn't necessarily communicating something specific as much as it is saying, like, we are here and this radio signal is too loud and specific for it to have been created by, like, something random in space. It's essentially just saying, hey, there's other intelligence here. And I do think, I don't know, I would have to look it up, but I would be willing to bet there's some organization out there that regularly sends radio signals just to see if they get anything in response. There's gotta be. I'm sure there is.
I mean, from what I've heard about I'm just like torn because I really don't think, or I have a really hard time thinking this was naturally occurring from my very, very, very limited knowledge of space and radio. Right? I mean, but at the same time, it's like it's so non-specific. But I mean, something that kind of does play to its favor is, from what I understand about it, like the frequency of the transmission. Like there were scientists talking about how like comets could emit that range, but there were others that were like rebutting that, saying no, they can't. And people who like studied like comet emissions specifically being like, no, they actually cannot. Like it wouldn't look like this. Like a comet wouldn't be able to generate enough hydrogen to make a bright enough signal like the wow signal. So you're wrong. So it's like, okay, so then maybe it is something man-made, alien-made, I guess. So I've heard things both ways, and from what you tell me, that's a lot to the plate for me to think about. I'm torn though.
No, I totally feel that. I mean, that's what's so interesting about it, is just, I don't know, how you genuinely can't tell. Even if you have an inkling of like, I think it's this, there's nothing that we can prove or disprove here, really. It's not like, aliens are going to come to Earth and be like, hey, so the wow signal was us. I mean, and if they did, we would know, but they haven't, so.
Right, but you know me, I hate Inception-like endings. I hate open-ended, like, shit. So, just for the sake of my own sanity, I'm gonna settle with, it is not naturally occurring. I won't specify at all, but I'll just say I don't think it's naturally occurring. So, kudos to those who think that. Because I have to side with that more than the other side. So, so you tell me about it is pretty fantastic. So,
pretty wowsy, pretty cool.
Pretty wowsy indeed. Yeah, like I was right to write that. So, by the way, that reminded me of the bloop. I don't know if you ever heard of the bloop. Which is like this ultra low frequency sound that was detected underwater, like back in the 90s. It was like people were like, "Is there a fucking monster underground, like underwater?" Because this sound, it's like the sound is so loud, it could only be emitted by something like 30 times the size of a blue whale. Whoa,
shut up.
So I'm not gonna talk about that right now, but I think I'll save it for the next.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we need to cover that. What is that?
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but there's a name for this and I already forgot. It's a phobia, but I don't really think I have that anyway. But I do have a kind of healthy fear of the ocean, and more specifically of creatures that could be in it.
Yeah.
Lurk within it, and this just freaks me out. Like I hate the thought of like me being on a boat, just like in the open sea, and like there being this gigantic creature under me, and there's never any interaction, but just knowing that the thing fucking exists and it could just take me out in a moment, like it's insane. Like we don't know shit about the ocean, you guys.
Totally.
Like,
well, speaking of stuff at sea, I've got a good unsolved mystery at sea if you're interested. But
go right ahead.
No, totally. So this is an older mystery, but in 1872 there was a British American ship. Wow. That was a controversial time to have a ship that was both British and American. You're less than 100 years out from the War for Independence. That's pretty wild. But there's a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste, which I think is a really pretty name. But it was found empty and adrift in the Atlantic Ocean. Here's the crazy thing. It was seaworthy, which means, like, it was afloat, it was good, The cargo was fully intact, except for one lifeboat, which appeared to have been boarded and had gone. There was plenty of supplies, enough for 6 months. Luxuries, including a sewing machine, an upright piano. This is basically, the Titanic, except it didn't sink. So the real question is, what on earth happened? So the Mary Celeste set sail from New York, bound for Genoa, Italy, and it was manned by Benjamin Briggs. What a name! You were just meant to be a sea captain if your name is Benjamin Briggs, I think. And 7 crew members, including Briggs's wife and their 2-year-old daughter. So most people agree, like, oh, something must have happened for them to abandon the ship, right? But here's where it gets really spooky. Their last entry on the daily log of the ship, which is where they would log anything that goes down, says that everything was as usual, nothing unusual, and everything was in order. So what we have is a perfectly intact ship, literally just floating in the Atlantic Ocean, with like valuable things you wouldn't want to leave behind. But this is 8 total people who just suddenly went on a lifeboat and disappeared. Like, what could have scared them that much, And no record of it in their log. So there's theories over the years. There's mutiny, pirate attack, and of course, assault by a giant octopus or sea monster. More recently, there's more theories about maybe there was some kind of big fire, but because of the specific fumes of alcohol on board, it didn't leave behind the usual signs of burning. But yeah, I personally... So I think that the most interesting, I guess, non-supernatural explanation is the pirate idea. But if it were pirates, they would have taken the valuables, right? Like...
Right.
Why is it just left there exactly as is with just the lifeboat gone? Like what scares someone that much for them to immediately leave everything behind on a lifeboat and go on a lifeboat, but also doesn't take anything from the ship and leaves it as is? That is so spooky.
That definitely discredits the pirate theory, but it also discredits a sea monster theory, because if the ship is intact, then no monster attacked it. I mean, you think maybe mass hysteria, like maybe they saw something or were so long at sea that they went crazy and they were like, oh, there's something threatening us, we have to leave the ship, when there's actually nothing there.
Maybe.
I don't know. I know that mass hysteria, while I actually don't really think it happens that often or at all in modernity, apparently it did happen fairly often in the olden times. So
really?
I kind of, yeah. I don't know if I don't think you did. Shannon and I did an episode on this very, very early on. Like, one of our first 10 episodes was about, there was like a dancing plague in Europe in like medieval times, where like people would just like, one woman started dancing in the street one day in like Italy or France or something, and a bunch of like people joined her throughout the next like 48 hours, and before you knew it, you had like 30 something people dancing in the street, like till they were fatigued and exhausted and fell to the floor, and some of them died from exhaustion. And people were like, well, that must have been mass hysteria, because like, and I agree, because like, how other way do you fucking explain that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
what is that?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Also, like,
yeah, and apparently they were all doing the party rock shuffle, so that was pretty weird, because that was right before its time. So how do you explain that? They were like, every day I'm shuffling, and then they died.
Party rock is in the castle tonight. All these serfs are gonna have a good time.
Oh my god.
And we gonna make you lose your mind. You're
Literally.
gonna pass out and maybe die. Da, da, da. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow, are you a songwriter? I can't. Wow, that was great.
I'm trying these days, ironically. I really am. Not with that, of course, but
I think Eurodance is really your calling. I mean, shit.
Time to make a genre shift. Wait, that's so interesting, though. And actually, now that you bring that up, there's another one that I have, that one of the explanations for it is mass hysteria. But that's so weird that's a thing. That feels very animalistic to me, Because you can see, like, in a herd of sheep, sheep is somehow sheeple, one of them, like, sees something that scares them and, like, runs off, and then the whole herd runs off, That feels like the kind of thing. That's just so interesting.
Well, which one do you have that is mass hysteria? Because I talk too much anyway, so honestly,
Oh,
you go ahead if you have
oh
it.
yeah, I can totally go
ahead.
for it. It's a super interesting one. I mean, yeah, these are also interesting. I've really enjoyed these. It's about the supposed acoustic attacks, not actually known if it's attacks or not, but sickness by noise in Cuba.
Shut the fuck up. I was gonna talk about that if time permitted, which I was like, I had already given up because we're at the hour mark and I just wanted you to go for it. But dude, I can totally join you in this one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
we can tag
yeah.
team this.
Go right ahead. Give me the background.
Okay, so in December 2016, a CIA officer checked into the American Embassy's health office in Havana, Cuba, suffering from nausea, headache, and dizziness, which usually would be symptoms of something like a concussion or like a traumatic brain injury. Days later, 2 more CIA officers reported similar ailments. And the interesting thing is that these CIA officers in Cuba were posing as, I think they were posing as diplomats. But basically, by the end of 2018, there was a total of 26 Americans and 13 Canadians experiencing nausea, hearing loss, vertigo, nosebleeds, and focusing issues. Emphasis on nosebleeds, because that's like... If
That's
it's
pretty strong.
Yeah, like if it's psychosomatic, which some people have tried to argue, then like how are they getting nosebleeds? But basically, in every single case, this is wild. This is over 30 people. This is almost 40 people. In every case, the victims claimed that the symptoms were triggered by a strange noise they'd heard at their homes or hotel rooms. Not a too loud noise, right? Because that would be a whole other thing if it damaged your hearing because it was too loud. Just a strange one. And they also all describe it differently. It's totally wild. So medical experts just don't know what's going on with this. The American government, because in our fresh Trump times, is like, oh, the Cuban government is doing something. But also, the reason why they can't go full throttle is that no one right now knows of the existence of a weapon where you just play a noise and make someone sick. Can you imagine how insane that would be as a weapon?
Well, to begin with, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen that in a movie. So, but that is pretty insane, right? Because that doesn't exist in real life as far as we know.
And because your ears are so vulnerable. This is brought up a lot. You can close your eyes, but like you can't close your ears. You can cover them, like that's an option. But yeah, it's just
It's pretty wild because you had like dozens of American diplomats and then dozens of Canadian diplomats. And they were all being affected by this. No other diplomats of other countries were affected by this. So immediately the suspicion was, well, the Cuban government is targeting the North American diplomats for some reason. They're trying to send a message or something or do something to them. Send a message? One, I don't think so. Because what kind of a message does that send? It's so unclear. Maybe number 2, like hurt them in some way? Sure. Mm-hmm. Or, but why? Like, and I mean, if you're, I don't know. I feel like if you really wanted to hurt them, you would be more aggressive. Maybe they wanted to hurt them while like remaining,
or
maybe
they wanted to test it out.
Maybe test it out.
Here's the thing, right? So Cuba is like a high stress area, so a lot of people were like, and this always blows my mind to people. It's like when you don't know how to explain something, you're like, well, I guess it's just psychosomatic and you're imagining it, right? It's just
Exactly. That's so cheap.
So one of the arguments was like, oh, this is a high stress position. Maybe this is just some kind of psychological thing that's happening to all these people. But then, here's the cherry on top. In May of 2018, an American posted in the consulate in Guangzhou, China, was diagnosed with the same mystery illness. And ultimately, 15 Americans were evacuated from that consulate in China.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So this is happening. I mean, then that weirds me out because it's like, okay, well, what did the poor Canadians fucking do to anyone, right? Like, what do they? But as far as Americans, yes, this is now at this point then in May of 2018 happening to American diplomats in 2 different places.
That's the thing.
Around the world.
Yeah, right.
And
so, why is it specifically American diplomats? Like, not just random civilians. But at a consulate
not
in
only
China
that,
and like diplomats who are also secretly CIA agents. Like, what if Cuba was like, you think you're gonna send your CIA agents here? We'll like show you what's up. In which case, I mean, I'm not trying to make an enemy out of Cuba or China here. But yeah,
I'll happily make an enemy out of China.
Well, I mean, no, we've already talked China.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but yeah, just super interesting.
I mean, it's the fact that it wasn't just American diplomats, but it was happening to American diplomats in these two countries that obviously have high tensions with the U.S.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you connect the dots, and it's kind of really difficult to look away from the possibility of this is an intent attack on these diplomats, probably not to send a message, but to, like you said, either test out a potential weapon or maybe to damage them to damage them, but maybe you just don't see the damage right away. Because from what I understand, the people who first reported this back in 2017 are still dealing with the like post-traumatic effects of this in 2020.
Really?
I listened to a podcast, yeah, where some of them came on anonymously, and they were like, yeah, my wife and I both worked at the Cuban embassy. She can't concentrate nowadays. She's like 40 and it seems like she has dementia. She'll pick up the phone and she won't remember why she picked it up, or like my son will still have nosebleeds every now and then, and it's like, what the fuck, like,
yeah.
and when these people went to get checked by like neuroscientists or doctors that specialized in brain trauma, the specialists would tell them that it's, as like you said, as if they had suffered a concussion, they had some sort of brain injury, and it was sustained over a long period of time, and now they had to like deal with it for the rest of our lives, or at least a really long time. So like,
wow. Just from hearing a noise though, like what is
I mean,
that?
yeah, that is weird, isn't it? Like, I think that like the notion of a noise machine that would make you vomit, which it did cause nausea in most of them, I feel like I've seen that in the movies and I can totally understand that and that makes sense. But for it to have like a long-term effect on your brain,
Yeah.
that's another level.
Right? Like, there's got to be something. I can't help but wonder too, because this is the thing with ears versus eyes. When you're asleep, you hear everything that's going on around you, right? Unless it's loud enough to wake you up. Like, I just wonder. They talked about hearing this noise. Like, how long did they hear it? Was it a sustained thing, or was it just one time? For it to have that kind of effect,
No. From what I saw, the most of the diplomats said they heard it multiple times, not just one time.
Okay.
And for like the way they described it, for example, you had this one American diplomat that the second time she felt the attack, is how she describes it. She was in her apartment kitchen, so she wasn't even in the embassy anymore when the second, third noises were taking place. Right? She was in her own home. She was in her apartment kitchen after a long day working at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, and she says, and I quote, "I felt an extreme pressure, like the full frontal top of my face was exploding off of my head." And then she recalls that being unsteady, like on her feet afterward, being unable to work. She was like medevac to Miami and diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. So it's like, okay, so right, like I needed to mention that. Like, something we didn't mention is there were multiple attacks, or multiple times these diplomats heard the noise, not just once, and they weren't all at the embassy. So it's like the noise would follow them home. That's how some of them described it. It would follow them home. And
oh my gosh,
they
I'm
felt
getting,
like
chills.
when they
That's
were
so creepy.
when they were in a room, be it in the embassy or at their home, they felt like the noise would follow them around the room, but it would go away when they opened the door.
Shut up.
This is bizarre, dude.
That's
like,
so
I
weird.
am lost.
Me too.
I mean, I can tell you this. I don't think it's mass hysteria. I don't think these people imagine it. If anything,
yeah,
I think
especially
that's almost
after it
borderline
happened again in
disrespectful.
China. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, and I also think I think this was man-made. Do I think it was intentional though? I don't know. I think there's a possibility, just because like it's only in a number of places, and the damage is like, it's bad, but it's not like they killed them or anything. I wonder if it's like maybe they were testing a weapon, but like they accidentally tested it on these people. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And that
lab leaks happen all the time, and like shit leaks from like research facilities all the time by accident. So
totally. And the other thing is that these are CIA agents, right? Like, you've got to be really sharp to be doing that as a job. They're probably,
well, some of them were, not all of them, but yes, some of them were. Yes.
Yeah. So probably like, it's just not people who I think would be easily prone to mass hysteria either, right? If your job is literally to be like an agent for the US, you're going to be a pretty observant, sharp person.
Right. So if you're trying to convince the public, if you're the perpetrator of this, you're trying to kind of wash your hands clean and convince the public that you had nothing to do with this, you're going to have a really hard time convincing people that trained CIA agents are just falling victims to mass hysteria. Like, no one's going to believe that because they are so well trained. So I wonder if this was accidental, honestly.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. Yeah.
Yeah, like man-made, but accidental. So I think that would explain why only in these two places, why these specific people, and it would also explain why the poor Canadians were involved in this when they didn't do anything. I think that might be it. But, you know, that still means there is a fucking sonic attack weapon being developed by one or more countries, it seems. And that's pretty
And the
spooky.
US doesn't seem to know anything about it, so woo.
Right.
Yeah, all that money that we put into, what was it, MK Ultra? Meanwhile, they were playing 4D chess, dude. We gotta get
Tell
with the
me
times.
about it. Man. Well, that was our episode, everyone. I feel like sometimes we leave the audience with, like, just fear. Just the feeling of fear.
We call it
And
scary
honestly,
talk for a reason.
Listen, too bad, but that's the world. Like, we didn't make the rules. We're just playing by them. We're just telling you the shit that we hear. And if we spook you because we're letting you know about things that are going on out there, if anything, at the same time, we're warning you so you keep your eyes peeled. So
And your
you're
ears
welcome.
closed. Fold those shits
And
over.
your ears closed. Close those ears. Oh my god, imagine what it would look like if you could, like, close your ears.
Oh my gosh, that's so gross. That's so gross.
They would just, like, roll into
Just,
themselves. Anyway, if you guys like this episode, please do let us know by DMing us at Talk Scary on Instagram and Twitter, or at Scary Talk on our Facebook page. Just let us know, or leave us a review on any podcast listening platform. We are on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us, etc. If you have any episode ideas that you would like to see us cover, DM us at the aforementioned places. And reminder that we might very possibly be doing a listener submitted stories episode. We've already gotten a couple, but we need more to do a whole episode on this. So if you have a personal, like, spooky story you'd like to share for us to read anonymously, or not, fuck it, if you want to say your name out loud, do send it to us through those same means. DM us, and and we'll do that. Sunny, anything else?
No, super excited to see people's stories, and thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, so remember, Sunny, you have to help me out with this. So we're going to go back and forth. So the Mothman is real. Your turn.
China's gonna come into your bedroom and play spooky sounds until you go crazy.
No large meals before bedtime.
Long live whatever alien race it was that sent us that little hello in the WoW signal. Hope y'all are doing well.
Correct. Yes. Also, shadow people are out to get you. Don't look under your bed, and fuck all my exes. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.